call the meeting to order. All rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call. Councilman Johnson is absent. Approval of the agenda. Is there any changes to the agenda?
No.
Council? Seeing none, do I have a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Dave. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Heidi. Call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4 in favor, none against. Approval of the minutes of the May 18th, 2016 regular meeting. You see them in your packet. Is there any changes, corrections, clarification? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the minutes of the May 18th, 2016 regular meeting?
I'll make the motion. Second.
Motion by Diane, second by Dave. Any other questions? Call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4 in favor, none against. Now is our public open forum. Is there anyone here that would like to speak to the council?
I have a letter presented to me. This person was not able to attend tonight, but she asked that I read this.
Okay, if it's from the public, you ask you to go from your seat and publicly speak down at that microphone. All right, thank
you. Okay. My name is Sarah Trisco, and I live at 43539 Yellowwood Road, Sauk Center. I want to apologize for not being able to make it to the meeting tonight. My children had prior activities planned, which has made it impossible for me to make both. I want to bring up the condition of the Sauk Center City Pound to the council. On Friday, May 27th, I was asked to help out with a dog that had been picked up by the local police approximately 2 weeks ago and had not been claimed by its owners. I volunteer with a rescue that takes in animals from shelters, pounds, people who no longer can keep them or care for them, and the city workers are aware of this. And from time to time, they have asked if the rescue would be able to take the animals that are not claimed. With this most recent dog, I asked them if I would be able to take a picture of the dog and assess the health of the dog before I could say if the rescue would be able to take it. When I went down to the pound, I was warned by the city worker prior to the door opening that the conditions may not be the best inside. When the door was opened, I was immediately taken back by the stench that was lingering in the facility. The dog that I was going to look at was inside the kennel on a towel that was wet and smelled of urine. There was feces all around her on the floor inside the kennel, and I was told by the worker that she would not go outside and that they thought she was probably blind. The dog was shaking and smelled terrible. She had wood ticks all over her, and when I took a closer look at her eyes, they were clearly cloudy and she had cataracts. I could not leave her in the facility another day knowing that the weekend was coming, and it was a holiday weekend besides, and looking at the conditions she had been living in for 2 weeks, I would not have been able to sleep. Before I got approval from the rescue, I decided I had to take her back to my home, and she was immediately cleaned up, her nails clipped, and wood ticks removed from her body and given food and water. Her stools were liquid and had blood in them along with her urine, which I can't say came from the pound, but clearly she was not in a good, healthy environment. Along with her being blind, I am sure her stress level was through the roof, which is extremely hard on an animal's immune system. City workers have told me that the conditions of the pound are horrible and that they would not want their dogs down there. This week was the final straw, and I knew I needed to bring this to the council's attention. Would you want your dog to stay at a facility like this if something happened where they got away from you and were brought to the pound? I know I wouldn't. I've looked up regulations and rules online for dog pounds, and there's a long list of guidelines that this pound does not meet. Major points are highlighted on this list for you to look over and discuss. At this point, I'm here to help by donating my time, sweat, and with finding funds for either rebuilding or revamping the existing pound to meet the required regulations. However, if the city chooses to do nothing and this abuse continues to take place, I will have to go to the next extreme by contacting newspapers, posting on social media, and contacting whoever is necessary to make the change happen. Since I was unable to attend this meeting, I'm hoping that by the next scheduled meeting, you'll have had a chance to discuss this issue and come up with some ideas on how this facility can be brought up to code. Attached is dog pound regulations. I will note that these are from the state of Connecticut, I believe. But you should be able to find Minnesota regulations online.
Okay, thank you. Since this was brought to our attention, my recommendation is that this goes back to staff, to Operations Committee, and have them review the situations. And at the same time, I know the city did talk about redoing the pound over the last couple of years. So, and along with the Operations Committee, I also think Personnel Committee will be involved on this also, because there's other
Right.
matters I think that need to be looked at. So, is there anyone else here that would like to speak to the public open forum? Is there anyone here that would like to speak at the open forum? Seeing no one else, our public open forum is now closed. We have no public hearings. We will then move on to our reports and presentations. Public Works, Matt?
Good evening. Just to kind of summarize what we did this spring is we did stormwater pond cleanups and brush removal. We went through, I'm not going to say all of them, but a great majority of all the existing stormwater ponds and sediment basins that we are responsible for maintaining. We had a few water main breaks, which caused some road repairs that we've patched since. We completed a campground modification of 5 sites to meet county size requirements. And so we're currently in the process of establishing them and then, or relocating the seasonals and then removing the services to the other 5. So there'd be 10 sites that are impacted. We did the spring splash pad startup, got that going, made it through the weekend. Tomorrow we're going to have a pre-con meeting for the Oak Street project where we'll learn quite a bit more on the timeline, and maybe Keith will talk more about that. We did general park spring startup and we're into full-fledged mowing. So we've been doing that. We had a few major events that we do at the arena every spring. They were in April, a majority of them. We did that, a gun show and a circus, and some others. There was actually a sporting event. Now we're continuing. We're in the process of patching streets and hope to have that completed within 2 weeks because it's in need. And today it was brought to our attention and we located an abandoned septic system that was located on city property, and staff, we had a county inspector come out today and we abandoned a septic system that was located. That's about it.
Questions? Street striping, painting parking spots, stuff like that?
After patching.
After patching?
Yeah.
Okay.
So June, like mid-June here, I would say we'd start on it.
Okay.
So we're gonna seal coat ash, so that'll all need to be restriped, and then we're looking at, I'm hoping to get some, we don't have the striping planned yet, who's gonna complete it for us, whether we contract it out, center line and fog line, or I'm hoping to help that there might be some mutual aid assistance with that.
Okay. All right. Any other questions, council? Okay. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
Action items, approved resolution 2016-43 requesting community wayfinding signs.
Okay, the Sauk Center Chamber of Commerce has been in communication with MnDOT regarding signage downtown directing the public to the chamber, the info center, and the Sinclair Lewis Boyhood Home.
And the MnDOT does have a community wayfinding program that provides directions to various nonprofits, and this is kind of where they'll group some signs and send them so that people know which direction to go. In order for us to participate in the program, I provided for you the rules, and then we would have to have a resolution of support, and then we'd have to develop the plan to say, these are all the signs we're going to put up, and then some of the existing ones that are located around town would all come down. So if we move forward with this, we would identify the ones that would come down, come back, these are the ones we want to put up. So this is kind of the first step. That would be the master plan. Examples of signs that are eligible for the wayfinding program are like City Hall, Chamber of Commerce, Information Center, Boyhood Home, Campground, Splash Pad, the Armory, the History Museum, Trailhead, any public things that when people come to town that they're looking for, public or nonprofit as well, I think is eligible to go on these signs. They do not allow commercial or retail. So this is not the kind of signs that you see that say, you know, resorts 2 miles that direction. These are just to find specific locations, and they have some rules about how many can be on a sign, how big they can be, where they can be located, what colors they are, and that's why I put that information together for you in your packet. But I did want to bring it to the council to get a resolution approving the program so we can begin working on that master plan. Before we actually submit it to them, we would bring that plan back to you and get your input on what signs we're recommending to be placed. So I'm looking for Resolution 2016-43, approving a community wayfinding sign program with the understanding that we would come back with the actual master plan. We didn't want to work to develop the master plan unless we knew we had the support of the council to move forward. So.
Questions?
So MnDOT provides the signs?
The cost of the signs are the responsibility of the city or like the chamber, whoever, you know, if somebody wanted to, say the Chamber of Commerce wants to have their sign included, then the chamber would pay for their sign. We would have to pay for one that would say like City Hall or Police Department or something like that. So whoever basically, who gets the directions to their location would be the one that would pay toward the sign.
All right, so what is that? I see here that we're responsible for the maintenance and installation and construction and apparently purchasing.
Right, this is
signs
just
as
to
well.
allow us, permitting us to do it.
This really just gives us the right to put signs up.
Right.
Or to ask to put signs up.
Right. This
All
is
right.
just because any signs on Highway 71 are permitted by MnDOT, and they have some regulations about what can and cannot be there. They're actually going through town right now, taking down old signs, putting up new signs. Some of our signs are coming down that are no longer necessary. This is just kind of a second phase to that, to help people find directions to where different facilities are. And it kind of started out by the chamber trying to put some signage up to direct people to the Chamber of Commerce. And of course, that got brought back to the city because it has to be a city that's the owner of the program.
Any other questions, clarification? I'm with Dave. I noticed, you know, asking the city to be the sponsor, usually anytime you sponsor anything means money.
Yep.
Yeah, so
Is that,
it depends, the cost is basically gonna depend on how many signs.
right now we pay for our own signs now. So, I mean, that part, other than the fact that we may put up some signs we may not otherwise have, we don't have one out on Main Street that says City Hall this direction.
Right.
So that would be our cost. Any of the city signs we pay for already, MnDOT doesn't pay for those.
Okay, so the ones they're taking down now and putting up new, we'll get a,
The MnDOT signs that they're taking down, they're their signs. We're responsible for ours, they're responsible for theirs.
okay.
So I think the only ones right now that we have, I think, are hospital ones. And the no parking ones and the hospital ones. There's some like no U-turns and things like that are coming down. And
Okay.
so,
Is there, if there's, like, say the chamber puts up a sign or whatever, can we send them a bill? for
that would
their
probably be how,
sign?
MnDOT would mail us, or we would have to purchase everything.
Right.
And then we would invoice
But
them
we
for
were
their
able to
share.
recoup any cost for anyone else other than.
And the chamber has
signs.
already agreed, they understand that they have to pay for their signs. It's
Right.
just that they're not eligible to be the sponsor of the program.
Right.
And MnDOT wants a go-to person. Yeah.
Okay.
We will be responsible for developing a master plan, though.
We would work with, you know, we'd go to them and say, where do you think? And I've already talked to Andrea, and she would work with us on figuring out what other signage could go up. This doesn't mean we're going to put all this sign up. This is just kind of a master overall plan. And then we may only get the sign that says Chamber Information Center, Boyhood Home, and city offices at this point. That's really how it started. But in order to participate in the program, you have to have a master plan for the city. So then we get the master plan, still only get those initial signs, but it gives us the ability to have more signs in the future.
Now, we've got a sign budget, right?
Yes, we do.
So would some of the cost would come out of there?
I imagine the cost of the city signs would come out of the sign budget, right?
Because looking at the examples, I'd say 90% of them are all city cost anyway.
They are.
Yep.
So-
If we choose to put them up. I mean, we may not
Right.
want to put some of these up.
Okay, any other questions or comments?
Yeah, gee, I wish I knew what it was going to cost to get into it in the first place. If we didn't do this, the backside is what? We won't have any signs?
There just won't be directional signs, correct?
We don't have too many of them now anyway.
We don't know, no. It was a way to be able to get signs to direct people. And so this is an avenue to do that. And we could, if you guys, if we want to move forward with it, we'd certainly, before we ever submitted the master plan or sent this in, we would have the cost. These are what we identified, this is what it would cost to do it. This would be our installation, so you would have a definite number that it would expect to cost the city before we actually began the program.
This basically is just showing an interest in going further, and then if we find out the cost is too much,
We just don't implement
we
it.
just don't implement. Okay. Any other questions or comments? Do I have a motion to approve Resolution 2016-43 approving Community Wayfinding Signing Program?
I'll make the motion.
A motion by Diane. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Dave. Any other discussion?
So this means that we're interested, but the first thing we'll have to do is put together a plan,
Right.
and that includes a map,
A map,
identification of all the possible,
and also pictorials of what the sign's going to look like, what color the sign is going to be.
What would the cost of creating that master plan be to us?
That would just be staff.
Okay.
okay, staff. How does the map get developed?
Sarah?
All right.
It's our general city map.
We have a net.
Right?
Well, yeah, and it'll have to be marked up, but I assume maybe they don't want it hand done, I don't know.
No, she would make an electronic map with
Okay.
indications of each sign, where it would be and what it would say.
I kind of want
Okay.
to see her draw it. Kidding.
Got an estimate on how long you think it'll take to put together this plan?
Well, I just said, I will talk to Andrea if the council decides to go forward, and we'll set up a meeting with her to work together with the chamber and come up with brainstorming of what the ideas will be. We'll work with Matt on estimated sign costs, Sarah on putting together the map, and based on their schedules, I imagine we would have it all good to go within 30 days.
The plan or?
The plan.
Plan for the plan?
No, the plan. The plan. I would like to
Right.
bring a plan back to you in 30 days.
I mean, I'm willing to look at it, but it would be nice to know what we're signing up for. I hate to think that, we're going to have 200 hours in developing some sort of a plan and
Well,
decide, whoa, that's a lot of money.
I guess when I brought this to you tonight to see if do we really have an interest. If you're not comfortable passing the resolution, we can go ahead and make the plan and then come in. If you don't like it, then you don't pass it. I mean, that's fine too, but I wanted to get some input from you as a council first. If you're like, no, we don't want anything to do with this, I'm not going to spend staff time developing a plan if you have no interest. If you're kind of so-so, I'm okay with developing a plan and let you make your decision based on that.
All right. It seems like we kind of got the cart in front of the horse again here. We're agreeing to do this. We don't have a plan. We don't have any idea.
I guess what I was looking for is some kind of a support for the program. And then if I have that support, we'll take the next step. It's one of those things, I don't want to spend a lot of staff time developing fancy maps and then come to you and you say, no, we're not doing it, and we just wasted our time. I guess it's kind of like, that's where I was coming from, by putting it
Okay.
on the agenda.
All right. Well, I get that. The resolution just seems a bit over the top.
It's MnDOT's resolution. I didn't
All
draft
right.
that one.
All right.
This is a requirement from MnDOT. for
Right,
us.
this is their resolution.
I honestly, I don't know how many hours it's gonna take, because everybody's pretty much gonna know where, you know, where we should be putting the signs anyway. So I don't think it's gonna take a whole lot of time, or at least it shouldn't. And I know whenever you go to another neighboring city and you're not certain where you're going, it sometimes all of a sudden when you do see that one sign that says City Hall that way, you kind of know where you're at then and stuff. So to be a small community and be on the friendly side, I would think it would only be something we should be looking at to welcome people more into town rather than letting them explore the hard way to find out where they're going. So, is there any other comments or questions? We have a motion and a second to approve Resolution 2016-43, approving Community Wayfinding Signing Program. Call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4 in favor, none against. Unfinished business, Oak Street Reconstruction Project. Keith?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I think Matt already stole most of my thunder on the Oak Street project. So that project gets started here soon. Tomorrow at 10 o'clock in the morning is our pre-construction meeting. At that time, we'll know a little bit more about their actual schedule. The indication could be as soon as Monday. I suspect that it'll be sometime between this Monday and likely the next Monday, I would say, is when that project will get started. So we'll start, notifying the residents and the adjacent property owners of things that'll get going on that. So we'll get that started for that one. That's about it. Any questions on that particular project?
Questions on Oak Street? Okay. Beltline?
Next one, Beltline. Most of that work is done. The final paving lifts were placed today, actually. They're doing it still today, and I think they started some yesterday, didn't they? Did some yesterday. So our portion is done. They're still finishing up the county portions on Beltline. In terms of our project, the only thing left is just a little bit of cleanup work in a couple of those ponds, and that's pretty much it. Then just final it out, and our part will be finished on that job. So, any questions on that project?
Is there any issues in the roads or anything like soft spots or anything that?
Nope, everything looked good.
Everything looked
Yeah. I was kind of expecting maybe something on Center Street, but it didn't. And Getty, we did do some repairs there, and those seemed to work fine because we didn't have any issues this spring, so things worked well.
All right. Any questions for Keith? Comments?
The original plan, when this was discussed, weren't we to tie in also across 71 and have that kind of be the second part of this project? The stormwater?
The stormwater was done on the other side of 71. It was tied in on the east side. That's what you're referring to?
The one behind, the one behind the apartments there.
Yep.
Didn't we have another one going out past Walmart?
No, that was
an option.
You're probably
Okay.
you're probably thinking about some of the options. That was one, and that wasn't the one that was selected. But
Okay.
everything that was that the council selected was done and is installed, and appears to be working fine for the rains and events that we've seen thus far. So we'll be getting likely some nicer big events here this summer. So it'll be fun to see how that performs, and we're certainly expecting things to work well, but we expect Getty to be much better than the issues we've had in the past there. So, okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Keith. New business, local option sales tax.
Okay, as it was previously reported by the Finance Committee, one potential avenue for funding the city's share of the Highway 71 reconstruction project, which is projected for 2024, so it's out there a little ways, is if we would institute a local option sales tax. This would be a 0.5% tax on taxable purchases within the city. It would include any item currently right now that you pay the 6.875% sales tax on. This would be that, not the motor vehicle sales tax, but the regular sales tax. and it's estimated that the 0.5% would generate about $250,000 a year. And so we would start banking that money toward the city's share of the project. What we would need to do, though, is we'd have to establish a definite period of time, and we'd have to limit it to specific expenditures. Like, for example, we could say the tax to be allocated to the city's share of Trunk Highway 71 reconstruction shall expire when costs, including bond payments, allocated or paid in full, something to that effect. There's a process that you have to follow. First, the council would have to pass a resolution authorizing the question to be voted on by the general public in the next general election, which would be November 8th. So we would bring it to the city council and say, this is, we have a resolution of intent, we get it on the ballot. That's the first thing that happens. You have election day, the question's on the ballot. If it passes on election day, then the council would approach the state legislature, and we would request the bill, it'd be introduced as a bill. So then the state legislature introduces the bill and they make it a law. And then once we have approval to do that, then we pass the ordinance actually implementing, and we work with the Department of Revenue to collect it along with the sales tax. So there's several steps and several different agencies. We have to deal with the county with the ballot question. We have to deal with the state legislature on that. We have to deal with the Department of Revenue to start collecting it. So there's several steps and timelines that we would have to follow. And then if we did that, the collection could begin as early as July 1st of 2017. So then you start looking at, how much money would we need and how much would it would generate and what are the options. So I did put some pros and cons. Of course, the pros could potentially be no property tax increase as a result of our share of the project. The increases of water and sewer rates for new trunk line infrastructure would be lessened or eliminated if we could generate enough to pay for those costs as well. The burden would be shared by everyone using the roadway to come to Sauk Center versus those just living here or having a business here. City would likely qualify for below-market PFA financing if local tax is used for repayment. There's actually a special PFA loan for that specific purpose. And the cons, of course, to this project then, people would pay more. It'd be half a penny per dollar spent on the cost of goods purchased, like 50 cents for every $100 that you would spend is what would go toward the project. And of course, another con would be the political pressure of instituting a new tax. And so that's something I did want to bring to the city council and to begin thinking about that. We kind of talked about it a little bit. So these are kind of the pros and cons, how the process would work. If we do want to move forward with it, we have to move quite quickly because we have a timeline for getting it on the ballot. And so if you're thinking that this is something we want to look, maybe we can send it to maybe the finance committee to ferret out the dollar side of it a little bit to see how much revenue do we truly think it would generate. I'm trying to nail down a little bit more what MnDOT and what the different costs for our share might be. And it's really tough to start looking at what those costs might be. I know that I'll involve the city engineer saying this is how many blocks, we know how much water, we know how much sewer, but we don't quite know yet what the MnDOT share is going to be, because on the stormwater side, they estimate how much comes from us and how much comes from them, and then they pay their share, we pay our share. They'll participate in the lights if we use a certain style of light. Part of the project would include sidewalks all the way down to the stoplight by Holiday because of the handicapped accessibility, and pedestrian safety is what's really one of the drivers of this project. Another thing that is a big issue is the Wobegon Trail Bridge. There's some width issues there that are a problem. And so I did talk to a couple other cities that in a process like this, they worked with the DNR on a trail grant to try to get a new bridge prior to this whole thing happening. So I'd like to explore that avenue. I know that like Bemidji, Brainerd, some of those other cities that had the Paul Bunyan Trail were successful in getting a Paul Bunyan Trail grant to participate in the costs of redoing the bridge and raising it up and widening it out. I know we have some historical features with the bridge that we would have to take into consideration, plus our downtown from 8th Street up to 3rd Street North is a historical district. So these are all things that we would have to look through. We do have all the records from the last time MnDOT was here. So we'll be able to go through those and what were the barriers that we found during that process. But this part that I'm talking to you tonight is really the funding mechanism side of it. We're not going to start talking about what the project really involves, just to have an idea of what the cost might be. But just to kind of get your feedback, get it out there that this is one of the ways we're thinking of a potential way to fund our share. Because 2024, not that far away, 2 or 3 years, we'll be already into design for the project, and then we'll take it from there. You know, I don't know, you guys could all be on the council when the time comes, or none of you could be here, we don't know. But it would be nice at the time to think that the council at least was trying to plan ahead a little bit and looked at the options anyway, so. So this is really no action tonight. I just wanted you to receive that information and kind of get a little bit of you know, what are your thoughts? You know, you can contact me later, you can bring it up now, you know, what are you thinking? You think this is just totally washed up idea, or do you think it's something we should pursue? So.
Questions, comments?
I just had one question as it kind of came up prior to this meeting, but tax to be allocated for city costs, this is your example of a time frame. When they say a definite period of time, do you have to have an end date, or can you leave it open like this where it says until the costs are met? Because what was asked of me when talking to somebody about this was, well, what happens if you have that end date met and you still owe money? Are you then going to assess?
I've seen it done 2 different ways. I've seen the ones that we're going to collect money up to this date and the funds collected will be allocated to a project, and then they ran short and it had expired. But before the expiration, they went back to the legislature and got it extended.
Okay.
So they continued to collect without a gap. I've also seen it say that they want to collect X dollars, and until they've collected that many dollars. So we won't know that dollar number, and we really don't know the end date number, so we're looking at some language to allow us to either have a date and be extendable, depending on what the costs are. And when I say city share, I mean non-MnDOT share, right? You know, we may receive funding from a variety of sources, but this would just go to help pay those.
Any other comments, questions? This is one of the things that, you know, I went to the Rotary Club and I've gone to the chamber and I've talked to them about this idea and asked them, because basically businesses in this town are going to have to help sell this if this was going to go on a ballot. One of the things is normally Water and Light covers the cost of the water mains, sewer mains. They do have some money saved up, but if we do not have a way of picking up the cost of that, you could see water and sewer great increases. If we, by doing the 0.5% or whatever we decide to go on, that could be making the bond payments, which is going to keep property taxes from going up. The beautiful picture is if everything would work out right, we wouldn't have to do any assessments. And when we got a downtown with a lot of empty buildings already and ownership, you come along and you do it this way where everybody that comes into this town and buys something pays, it's like you do in St. Cloud and like you do in Alexandria or a lot of other cities. They're paying for that road and not the businesses and the people that live on Main Street, because we might be able to forego the assessments and water and sewer rate increases. And that's one of the ideas that this here we're looking at.
That's the point of this.
The point of it, right.
Yeah.
And the pure fact is like she said, some of us might be here when this happens, some of us, but I don't want it to come out that we didn't do or try. And it's going to be up to the public to decide whether they want to assess everybody or if they want to have everyone else that comes through town pick up the slack and help us do it this way. So that's why we're looking at it. One of the meetings I went to, they basically said, depending on the cost, don't sell ourselves short. Like you said. Meaning, okay, we do it for a set amount of years and we come up short. Yeah, we're not guaranteed the legislature's going to extend it. So if they said if you got to go from 0.5% to a 1%, maybe you look at that. Look at it on the bigger picture. Just don't lock yourself in. And make sure you've got that taken care of. So it's one of the feedback, but I did not get any negative feedback from anyone so far, and they're mainly businesses.
Yeah, well, the councils have taken a lot of grief for not planning ahead. You know, a big project comes up and everybody's here, why didn't you plan ahead? Why didn't you put some money away? Well,
Right.
This will do it.
And that's one of the issues too, from what I understand, if MnDOT, in 3 years, we get within that 5-year window, MnDOT comes walking in to do the design and they see that we haven't done anything to maybe look at covering our share of the cost. There's a possibility they might turn around and walk out the door on us again, and we know what happened the last time. We've been sitting here for 25 years without anything happening, and I don't know if we can wait that long to do it again, not to scare anybody, but that is a real possibility. So, as far as I'm concerned, I think staff and the council has to keep looking at this and seriously look at bringing it and putting it on the ballot for this fall.
Well,
I'd agree.
looking
I
for
agree.
direction, I think the finance committee is the place to go.
Right.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
okay. Anything else, Vicki? on
Nope.
that? Okay. 9B, Little Red Schoolhouse relocation.
With the sale and development of the information center property, we agreed to retain the Little Red Schoolhouse, and there's been speculation on where it should be relocated to, and I did want to bring it up at the meeting because a lot of people are under the assumption it's going to be demolished, so I keep getting phone calls that people want me to give it to them. So I believe the city's intent is not to have it demolished. We had several options of people that have come forward with ideas, and I did put them in your packet along with a map of the location. One of those options was to put it to the fairgrounds, and then they would have like a history-type display, and they said near the conservation building to be used during Fair Week. I've had Sinclair Lewis Park, availability during Sinclair Lewis Days Grill and Chill and 4th of July, any other events, and it would be in a pine tree setting. That was the comment that I was made, similar to existing. I had one, the Bank Park, which is behind Minnesota National Bank, close to downtown. The Trail by American Legion, which has visibility from 71. I've had the Conservation Park, part of a future development area, restoration of the river down there. I've had the Library Lawn, which could be part of educational programs. So there is several different options that we'll be starting to discuss and looking at that and getting some cost estimates. The schoolhouse is planned for moving in the fall of 16 or right away in the spring of 17. So we would be moving that to one of these or other locations. Now most, or a lot of these are currently owned by the city, so relocation is not necessarily, would be very difficult. If it's a relocation to somebody not city, then we'd have to deal with that. You know, how does the city dispose of property and that kind of thing. So depending on the direction that we go with it. So I just wanted to bring it up for some preliminary brainstorming, not looking for any action tonight. Start thinking about it, go look at those areas, come up with other ideas. We're open, I think, pretty much to any other ideas. And we'll just take it from there. And I will say there's been a lot of attachment to that building. I've had a lot of input from people really concerned about it. So hopefully they'll be assured that we're not tearing it down and we'll find a new home for it, so.
Any comments, questions? Basically look at the sites, bring it back to staff and what we think, and we will discuss it when we get a little closer. That brings us to our consent agenda. We have the schedule of claims, unpaid claims of $101,815.74, paid claims of $2,163.25 for a total of $103,978.99. We also have resolution number 2016-44, accepting a contribution of $1,000 from the American Legion Post 67 to be put toward the senior center, and I want to thank the American Legion for that donation on behalf of the city. Do we have a motion to approve the consent calendar as presented?
So moved.
A motion by Heidi, second. Second by Dave. Any other questions, comments? Call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4 in favor, none against. Informational items.
A couple things informational. We have the hazardous waste pickup day, Wednesday, June 15th, which is coming up shortly. It's 9 to 1 in the arena parking lot. We are looking for volunteers to help that day, unload cars, take surveys and that type of thing. One of the things that is new this year that's not accepted is like the antifreeze and the used motor oil. And so they're asking you to take those to the oil facility at the truck stop. We have a facility there to take that and not to take it to this location. So they have had some of that in the past, and that's someone that's different. But this is for getting rid of your paint, your chemicals, your sealers, your aerosols, roofing tar, all that kind of thing that people have when they clean out their basement, and they encourage you to bring it up here. Otherwise, any other time of the year, you can actually take it to the facility in St. Cloud or Waite Park. This is just them taking the show on the road to get people to take those into the hazardous waste system and not, throw them in a ditch or wherever they otherwise might find their way, so. But you can certainly feel free to volunteer. We're looking for those volunteers.
Vicki, excuse me, I volunteered last year. I'll volunteer again this year, too.
Thank you.
It's kind of fun, actually.
Yeah, it is. The next item on the agenda is the Stearns County 5-year road program. There's the map and then the list of all the roads that they plan to do. Not too much in the area of Sauk Center. We've had quite a bit of activity in the last few years regarding the county, and so we won't be participating actually in any of their projects next year. So that's a little bit of maybe good news from the budget standpoint. And the last item that I have on here is the CVB has put out this new poster around town, fun things to see and do in Sauk Center. It's a nice poster, it's glossy, they put them up, and it's just kind of to promote things for people to do when they come to town. And this is good because I know like the campground people will stop up here and ask for what can they go do, and now we have just a handout for them, so. But that's all I have for right now.
Questions, comments on the informational items? Okay, that brings us to the end of our agenda. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion from Dave, do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Heidi. Call the question, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4 in favor, none against. Meeting adjourned.